Hello viewers and welcome to yet another live-action commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to share with you another video courtesy of Alexander Chimadon. To the left we see Commander Shadowsun, our original Tau faction warlord, played by a gentleman named Kevin Engel, and to the right we have our Chaos Warlord Zarathur High Sorcerer, played by Per Engstrøm. To the left, we can see our initiative token resulted in a Blood Angels Veterans being played out to planet number 1, very powerful 3/3 unit with 1 command icon, which prevents the first point of damage dealt to it so long as it's exhausted, and something that our Chaos player typically likes to see as the very first play of the game. We see Slanesh's Temptation put out to planet number 2, which only serves to augment the cost of each and every subsequent unit not played out to planet number 2, played by Commander Shadowsun. We do see a Viorla Marksman put out to planet number 2. It's a 1/2 ranged unit paid for at no premium. And to the right, we see a Void Pirate touchdown on planet number 4. To the left, we see an Earthcast Technician opposite that Void Pirate, and that affords Kevin the opportunity to tutor the top 6 cards of his deck for any drone or attachment he would like. Looks as though he's maybe got a couple heavy marker drones to choose from, and perhaps a couple copies of gun drones as well. In assessing our opening layout of planets, planet number 1 is going to be Karnath, which affords players the opportunity to trigger the battle ability of any other planet in play. Planet number 2 is going to be Yvonne, a relatively low-value planet, which allows players to put a unit into play from their hand directly into their HQ. Very curious choice there for Slanesh's Temptation. Typically, you're much more likely to see planet 4 or 5, but that is definitely not the most likely to be pursued battle ability. All the same, planet number 3 is Planum, which moves non-warlord units. Note that that could allow the Blood Angels veterans at planet number 1 to nicely shift to planet number 2, or wherever else Kevin would like to send it. Planet number 4 is going to be Ossus for the Steel 1 resource planet, and planet number 5 is going to be Elowith, which allows players the chance to tutor the top 3 cards of their deck for any one card that they would like. We see an Incubus Warrior rather curiously played out to planet number 1. It's got 2 command icons to trump the Blood Angels veterans at planet number 1, but note that Commander Shadowsun indeed has the initiative token, and that could potentially be a very dead Incubus Warrior prior to its opportunity to do anything. So let's see if that 2 resources and 1 card was necessarily worth winning 1 card and 1 resource. And we also see a copy of Bloodied Reavers put out to planet number 4, which will allow Per there to the right to trump the command icon laden Earthcast Technician. But both of our players are deciding where exactly to go. The Zarathur player is going to forego initiative at the first planet unless he sends Zarathur to the first planet. Commander Shadowsun, I think, is indeed going to be showing up at the first planet. Let's see what, if any, attachment Shadowsun puts into play. There we go. That's a copy of Shadowsun's Stealth Cadre, augmenting the Blood Angels veterans to a 5/5 attacker that does indeed have initiative. That Incubus Warrior is going to be easy pickings, and Zarathur himself is a 1/6 warlord, and unless we happen to see a wealth of shield icon cards, things could go all the way bad for Zarathur there. But planet number 1 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource to the right for Zarathur. Planet number 2 is going to be a lone resource token to the left for Kevin. Planet number 4 is going to be 1 card and 3 resources to the right for Zarathur. But let's see how exactly things break down. Each and every instance of damage that Zarathur deals is going to be augmented at his location by 1, but until that Blood Angels veterans ends up being exhausted, it's going to basically ignore 1 point of damage. Shadowsun herself is still attacking as a 1/7, so 5 damage plus 1 damage is enough to bloody Zarathur. Certainly Zarathur there has quite a few cards in hand, so let's see what exactly to expect. Are we going to see an Archon's Terror? Certainly we have enough resources for it, but we actually see that Blood Angels veterans exhaust. I can only imagine that it's indeed attacking Zarathur, but what will we see? Our Tau player still has 2 resource tokens. I can't really think of anything too terribly clever for a Tau player to use as an event. Things like Drop Pod Assault or indeed Space Marine Loyal, and it looks as though Zarathur does not shield any of that damage. Zarathur's already taken a colossal 5 hit points worth of damage. The Incubus Warrior is going to have the opportunity to attack it's going to be a grand total of 4, whether it's up against Shadowsun or the Blood Angels veterans that is exposed and vulnerable. We see a copy of Deception used as shields. That's going to be 2 points of damage onto Commander Shadowsun. Commander Shadowsun really starts to stink once she does end up being bloodied, but 5 hit points remaining is still a tremendous amount, and that Blood Angels veterans could deal out a tremendous amount of damage between now and then. But what exactly are we going to see? That Chaos player does indeed have 2 resource tokens. We could see something like an Infernal Gateway drop a Khorne Berserker or Zarathur's Flamer into play, but what are we going to see? If he has no shield icons whatsoever, then Commander Shadowsun could first turn Bloody Zarathur, which would be absolutely ridiculous. But how is the remainder of combat going to break down? Our players are trying to decide. It's Zarathur's opportunity to be attacked, I believe. So let's see. What are we going to see from Commander Shadowsun? Something like even the odds isn't going to make any kind of difference here. We don't have an ambush platform to drop a command link drone or anything like that into play. Interestingly, Commander Shadowsun uses her combat action to retreat from the planet. I'd have been very inclined to try to bloody Zarathur, but let's see how things go. Looks like it's the end of the combat round, and Zarathur decides to retreat, so very curious indeed. And what exactly are we going to see in regard to battle abilities here? We could see Yvonne put some big, well, potentially big Tau unit into play, like a Crisis Suit or a Sakea XV-88 broadside. Note, I've not seen anything like that in our Tau player's hand, and it looks as though he only really has copies of gun drones. But let's see, there's going to be no additional combats this round. Looks like we choose to have Planum activate, and that's going to be just the Blood Angels veterans shifting down there along the line. That's going to be a 3-icon planet there at Yvonne, so let's see how things go. If our Commander Shadowsun player can manage to not just have captured planet number 1, but if he captures Yvonne and also captures Planum, then that could potentially be the game for Commander Shadowsun. But let's see how things break down. The initiative token is going to transfer in just a moment, I'm sure, to the right to Zarathur, and that's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players. So, let's see how this goes. It's going to be the deploy turn for our Chaos player. We see a copy of Promise of Glory, so that's going to be 0 cost. 2 cultist tokens put into play, each of which can be sacrificed in order to decrease the deploy cost of a Chaos demon, really any demon, by 1 apiece. We finally see our new 5th planet. It's going to be Taurus, the planet which rewards you for having a unit count lower than that of your opponent in the form of your choice of 3 cards or 3 resources. That Slaanesha's Temptation is still sitting out at planet number 1, serving to increase the cost of anything deployed to a non-first planet by 1. We see an ambush platform put into Commander Shadowsun's HQ, and that's incredibly nasty, seeing as how we know that there's going to be at least 1 copy of gun drones in that gentleman's hand. So a gun drones deployed as a surprise for 1 resource is incredibly nasty. But let's see what exactly our Chaos player is going to do as a response. What's a bit of a shame is that rather formidable copy of Bloodied Reavers there is potentially sitting at a planet that's outside of Commander Shadowsun's victory condition. Like if the entire game ends at Planum, then the potential 4 attack value of that Bloodied Reavers is going to do absolutely no good whatsoever for our player there on the right. But a command icon is a command icon, and 1 card, 2 resources from a planet each and every round is definitely not a bad thing. But I do believe it's still our Chaos player's opportunity to play. There we go. We see a copy of the Gleeful Plague Beast. Kind of an interesting choice put out to planet number 1. It's a relatively beefy body, but upon the onset of the combat phase, it deals out 1 damage to each unit at its planet. That means if Zarathur goes to that planet, he could potentially be killed, well, potentially be bloodied. That Viewerlaw Marksman's not going to be killed. It's going to be able to attack at range. The Blood Angels Veterans is going to be ignoring that damage entirely. And we also see another unit put out to planet number 1. It looks as though that's another copy of Blood Angels Veterans, which it's difficult to tell because of the glare, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And unless Zarathur touches down at that planet, that's going to be yet another unit that basically suffers no penalty whatsoever for that Gleeful Plague Beast. So I cannot help but feel as though that Gleeful Plague Beast was sent out to die and I can only imagine that that means Zarathur must be between a bit of a rock and a hard place. But we see another copy of the Bloodied Reavers put out to planet number 2. That's one command icon. It's potentially attacking for 4. Should Zarathur or any other warlord go to that planet, I can only imagine that Zarathur, okay, I guess I was assuming Zarathur would have shown up at perhaps Taurus or perhaps Elwith. In assessing unit count, it looks as though Zarathur's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total, and it's only something along the lines of 5 for our Tau player. But let's see how command icons break down. I guess during the command struggle, planet number 1 is going to be 1 resource token to the left for Commander Shadowsun there. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 card and 1 resource to the right for Zarathur. Planet number 3 is also going to be 1 card, 2 resources for Zarathur. And a very interesting choice here that Commander Shadowsun opted to go to planet number 1. I do not see any attachment affixed to any of these units, and therefore I cannot imagine why exactly Commander Shadowsun would have wanted to go to that planet. Looks as though it's entirely possible that Commander Shadowsun could have gone to Elwith to get that additional couple cards, to do that card tutoring effect, even if he didn't want to rely on Taurus potentially being able to activate. But looks as though we see that Gleeful Plague Beast deal itself a point of damage. The Viorlaw Marksman takes damage. Commander Shadowsun also takes damage, all the more reason not to send Shadowsun to that planet. The Gleeful Plague Beast gets shot for 1 thanks to the rifle there of the Viorlaw Marksman. The initiative token once again happens to be in the hands of our Tau player. That's going to be an incredible swing for 5 up against that Gleeful Plague Beast, and the Gleeful Plague Beast is joyously destroyed, and that's going to be yet another battle won. We actually see a Warp Storm played out to that planet. Very interesting there. A little bit of a combat action. That's going to be 2 points of damage to the Viorlaw Marksman, 2 points of damage, -1 to that Blood Angels Veterans. The buffed attachment augmented Blood Angels Veterans is going to be taking no damage whatsoever, and that's going to be Commander Shadowsun with 5 points of damage. So once again, boys and girls, unless you're tremendously concerned about an Infernal Gateway or 1 or more copies of Archon's Terror or something like that, do not send your warlord needlessly into harm's way. But that's that copy of Slaanesha's Temptation gone. That's going to be Yvarn captured to the left by Kevin. That's going to be 2 red icons, 2 blue icons, 1 green strongpoint icon, and therefore if Zarathur cannot manage to basically shore up Planum here, that could potentially be the game. So I think our Chaos player could go for a very easy victory at Elwith. He could kind of push his luck in sending a bunch of units to Planum, where there are some frightening enemies located. Our new planet number 5 is going to be Iridial. Note that that's the heal all damage planet. That's going to be an appetitive target for Zarathur to potentially go, but Zarathur's also going to be very worried about potentially needing to win that battle at planet number 1, because if Zarathur loses that battle, that's going to be the game. Commander Shadowsun is potentially going to want to go to planet number 1, but then that's a very high likelihood of her being bloodied. I think a much safer destination would indeed be setting up at planet number 3. Our Chaos players already used 1 Warp Storm. There's no Exterminatus or anything like that to fear, so it's cool if you're playing against Chaos to kind of set yourself up there. We can see that our Tau player once again has the initiative, which, considering that it all could come down to our new first planet here, that could potentially be absolutely fantastic. We've got 6 resources. That is a lot that 1 player could potentially put into play. We also know full well that we've got a copy of Gun Drones in that player's hand. I see a copy of Land Raider, which would be very interesting. If that were to touch down at that planet, that would mean that basically any other units, or perhaps any other non-vehicle units, cannot be the target of card effects. So that disallows everything from Tzeentch's Firestorm to Eldorath to all manner of different effects there. That Incubus Warrior is not looking too tremendously hardy if it has to suffer through an area effect to volley thanks to gun drones or something like that. But we could see that Bloodied Reavers survive. It could at least get off an attack and bloody Commander Shadowsun. Then a copy of Archon's Terror could get rid of one of those vulnerable Blood Angels veterans, but let's see how exactly things are breaking down. There's no more Slaanesha's Temptation in play, so our Commander Shadowsun player there to the left is free to put out units wherever he would like at just their normal cost. Looks as though maybe our Chaos player has passed. We can see Chaos has 7 resources, so if he has 3 Archon's Terror in hand, or an Archon's Terror, or 2, and a Warp Storm, there's just a wide range of different effects we could potentially see. I do see another Warp Storm there to the right. I saw a couple copies of Tzeentch's Firestorm, that X damage to target army unit event, or it's a 2-shield icon card, but let's see if Commander Shadowsun is going to be a little bit daring, or if Shadowsun is instead going to play it safe. Looks as though we see a copy of the Rogue Trader going to planet number 3, and that could be a great destination there for Shadowsun just to set himself up for an easy victory. We see a very seldom played unit, the Kabbalite Strike Force, go to planet number 3 as well. They do not have a command icon, but if Commander Shadowsun goes to that planet, that could potentially be an area effect 1, hitting Shadowsun, hitting 2 exhausted copies of Blood Angels Veterans. Definitely not a bad play there, but that's 7 units in total controlled by Zarathur, and that's only a mere 4 units controlled by Commander Shadowsun. So for that reason, we could potentially see Shadowsun go to Taurus, but if that's the case, she'll be dropping off both of those copies of the Blood Angels Veterans between now and then. You could win at Taurus if you're Commander Shadowsun, but that's quite a ways down the line, and that is giving up a lot of planets between now and then. But let's see where exactly Commander Shadowsun decides to go. I could easily see Zarathur going to planet number 5, or planet number 1. It all decides on, well, it all comes down to how much faith do you have in your opponent to not go to planet number 1. Planet number 1 is definitely the conservative play, but depending on one's opponent, depending on how risky they are, how well you know their deck, any number of different things could happen, and I believe at this point we've seen Commander Shadowsun pass, so where exactly are our Warlords going to go? Really, the best case situation is going to be, well, for Zarathur, if the opposition goes to planet number 1, that could be potentially bloodying that Warlord, and then through Tzeentch's Firestorm, through Warp Storm, through Archon's Terror, I believe it would not be too tremendously difficult to save that planet. And like I mentioned earlier, a bloodied Commander Shadowsun is a very weak unit indeed. But let's see how things break down. Looks as though it's going to be planet number 5 for Zarathur, and planet number 5 as well for Commander Shadowsun. So let's see how this is going to break down. There's 2 Warlords there. Both of them have 5 damage. Both of them could potentially bloody one another, but let's see how exactly this works out. The initiative token is in the hands of Commander Shadowsun, so is Commander Shadowsun going to dare to potentially attack, or is she going to retreat? Those Blood Angels veterans, I don't think, are going to be able to stand up against Zarathur, but let's see how this breaks down. I guess we'll deal with that combat when we get to it, but for the moment, planet number 1 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource to the right there for Zarathur. Planet number 2 is going to be 2 resources, 1 card for Zarathur. Planet number 3 is going to be 2 cards, 1 resource for Zarathur. Planet number 4 is going to be entirely uncontested, and planet number 5 is going to be our Warlords breaking even. So we're going to see combat at planet number 1. Is there absolutely anything we're going to see at that planet? No. Looks as though we see a copy of, well, we see that ambush platform not exhaust, but I can only imagine that it's going to be dropping into play a copy of Ion Rifle to that Blood Angels veterans. He must be a bit afraid of something along the lines of another Warp Storm being triggered at that planet, potentially bloodying Commander Shadowsun and dealing out a significant portion of damage to that Blood Angels veterans. But looks as though we've still got combat going on at planet number 1. And interestingly, our players are drawing some cards here, so I suppose we're still resolving our command struggles. That was a little bit confusing, so perhaps our players are getting ahead of themselves, doing things ever so slightly out of order. but let's see if there's going to be anything to occur at planet number 1. We do see Planum successfully captured by Zarathur. That's going to be 1 green and 1 blue, strong point and technology icon. We see that Planum shifts the Kabbalite Strike Force down the line to planet number 5, and that means that if Zarathur can stay at that planet for at least a little while, the Kabbalite Strike Force is going to be able to do an area effect 2 volley. So note that the initiative token is in the hands of Commander Shadowsun, and therefore that strike force should not be able to attack quite yet. We've still not seen the ambush platform exhaust. That's going to be Commander Shadowsun attacking Zarathur for a swing of 1. For some reason, we actually see Commander Shadowsun unexhaust. Perhaps Kevin is deciding, there he goes, he wants to retreat instead, and now these Blood Angels veterans are going to be at the mercy of Zarathur, so time to bring the pain. Let's see how this is going to break down. We can't see a squadron redeployment or anything like that spare either of these units because they're already exhausted. They cannot exhaust to be shifted from planet to planet, so that's going to be the Kabbalite Strike Force dealing out 2 points of damage to each of these units, and based on how things are resolving here, I can only imagine that one of these players is perhaps a little bit newish. We do see the Ion Rifle affixed unit outright destroyed. The Blood Angels veterans takes 2 points of damage that happen to have that Stealth Cadre, and as Kevin was about to put that into the discard pile, he did so prematurely, but of course then Zarathur swings for 2 and ends up killing that unit. So perhaps Kevin is a newer player to the game, and if so, good on Zarathur for teaching him how to play. Absolutely fantastic Conquest. But whether that's the case or whether it was a simple oversight, we end up seeing Iridial 1 by Zarathur. That's going to be an incredible 5 damage tokens erased from that Warlord. We've no new 5th planet, of course, because the game is drawing into its medium to later stages. This is going to be our HQ phase, meaning 4 resources and 2 cards for each of our players, and just look at that incredible pile of resource tokens there on both of those playmats. So to the left, we see a whopping 10, and to the right, we see something along the lines of 10 as well, actually 11. But let's see how exactly this is going to go. I believe we saw another copy of Promise of Glory equate to 2 additional cultist tokens. I guess those original cultist tokens from earlier must have been sacrificed to help fund the Gleeful Plague Beast. It's going to be Commander Shadowsun's opportunity to act, and now Shadowsun is going to have to try to block off a victory, potentially at the planet Taurus. So this could come down to Taurus for Shadowsun, depending on how things go, because Shadowsun will win at that planet through either through a red icon, and Zarathur could potentially win at that planet with a green technology icon, presuming Zarathur manages to win at Ossus 4. But we see a fair few units put into play. Incubus Warrior at Taurus helps shoring up that planet nicely. We see a Void Pirate also at that planet, and we see a copy of Zarathur's Flamers put down at Eloith. So at this point, Zarathur's established quite a bit of a command presence on the board. We also see a copy of the Bloodied Reavers put out to Eloith, very interesting choice, and we also see a copy of the Kabbalite Strike Force, and at this point I'm starting to wonder why exactly are Chaos players playing out really all of the units available. For instance, if that Strike Force ends up leaving, well, like, let's say that Ossus 4 is 1, that's just going to be kind of a glut of units all entering Zarathur's HQ there, and of course, if planet number 1 ends up being won by Commander Shadowsun, that's not going to be putting Zarathur at immediate risk of losing the game. A planet where that does potentially occur is planet number 2, but we can see that there's that Zarathur's Flamers, there's that Bloodied Reavers, and both of those are incredibly nasty effects. We can also see a copy of Promotion affixed to the Kabbalite Strike Force sitting at planet number 4, and that's going to afford Zarathur the opportunity to get into one card that he may otherwise not have. Interestingly, looks as though Zarathur has decided to try to defend Taurus against the likes likes of a marauding Commander Shadowsun. Shadowsun touches down on that planet, and that's going to be the initiative token in the hands of Zarathur, so let's see if Zarathur can deal out the amount of damage required to bloody Commander Shadowsun, but that's going to be planet number 1 is going to be 1 card, 2 resources to the right for Zarathur. Planet number 2 is going to be 1 resource, 2 cards for Zarathur. Planet number 3 is actually going to be, looks as though that's going to be 1 card, sorry, 2 cards, 1 resource for Zarathur, and planet number 4 is also going to be 1 card for Zarathur. So we've got that ambush platform. It could do something along the lines of affixing that copy of Gun Drones to the Earthcast Technician, but we do not see that. The Earthcast Technician is killed by the Kabalite Strike Force's swing at planet number 1. That's going to be another green strongpoint icon captured by Zarathur to the right. That's that dead Earthcast Technician, and that is going to be a stolen resource if we do see that battle ability triggered. And then we're going to see Battle at Taurus. Commander Shadowsun only has 1 unit in play. That's going to be... What exactly is that attacking? Is that going to be an Incubus Warrior? Yeah, there we go. It's going to be 4 points of damage dealt out to Commander Shadowsun. Commander Shadowsun is now bloodied. Things were looking pretty good in the beginning for Commander Shadowsun, and now they're looking like a horror beyond horrors. That is going to be Taurus successfully defended by Zarathur. The Zarathur is going to bounce back to that HQ. All those units at planet number 1 are going to be sitting there in Zarathur's HQ. And now, in order to try to win the game, our Commander Shadowsun player is going to have to try to win at Eloith, which could be entirely possible based upon how many copies of Gun Drones we can lay upon 1 unit, or in any case, Commander Shadowsun will have to try to prevent the opponent from winning there at Taurus. We do see a copy of Tactical Squad Cardenas at planet number 1 with a Gun Drones. That's an incredibly powerful Area Effect 3, which is very powerful, very likely to potentially kill off some of those Chaos and Neutral and Dark Eldar units. But what exactly are we going to see? A single Archon's Terror will handily deal with something along the lines of a Gun Drones-laden Tactical Squad Cardenas. We see a Mark of Chaos, the signature attachment, interestingly put into play on that Zarathur's Flamers there. That's when that unit leaves play, you deal 1 damage out to all enemy units at that planet. And I'm not exactly sure if we're going to see Zarathur touch down on that planet, just because Mark of Chaos doesn't do nearly as much without Zarathur's assistance. 2 damage to all those units is far more dangerous than 1. But let's see how things break down. We see a Borkon Recruits at planet number 1. We see that Borkon Recruits ends up with a copy of, that looks to be Gun Drones, I believe, affixed to that unit. I only got a moment to glance at the art, but I can only imagine that it'll be potentially attacking for Area Effect 2. We see a second copy of Zarathur's Flamers at planet number 1. There, I believe we see another copy of Gun Drones affixed to the Tactical Squad Cardenas at planet number 1, so now a single Archon's Terror cannot banish these units immediately, and we also see a copy of the Noise Marine Zealots at planet number 1, which could potentially be a 4-3 unit if a Warlord shows up at that planet. And there we go, we see a copy of Land Raider touchdown on planet number 1. Absolutely a fantastic play there for Commander Shadowsun, because that means that Archon's Terror can all of a sudden no longer target the Borkon Recruits or the Tactical Squad Cardenas. You've got to deal with that Land Raider first. We see a copy of Deception bouncing away that Zarathur's Flamers that happen to have an affixed Mark of Chaos, so that signature attachment is now gone, and that copy of Zarathur's Flamers is now returned to hand. I'll be curious to know as to whether or not it looks as though Zarathur had passed, so a very nice play of that Deception, and let's see how combat breaks down. Commander Shadowsun ends up going to planet number 1, and I cannot help but feel as though that may have been a little bit of a mistake, because you're going to want to use as many actions as possible, and if Commander Shadowsun ends up being killed, then that means you could lose the game, and Land Raider, that Tactical Squad, that Borkon Recruits, all of that's going to be much more difficult to chew through than a single 5 hit point unit, and if you're wasting combat actions to retreat your Warlord, then that just outright sucks. But in assessing command icons, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe, to the right there for Zarathur. I believe that Land Raider has 2, so I think that Zarathur ends up taking 3 2 cards, 1 resource at planet number 1. Planet number 2 is going to be Taurus, is 1 card, 1 resource there to the right. We see the copy of Land Raider actually routed from an Archon's Terror, not discarded, so that should not be in the discard pile there. We see a copy of Squadron Redeployment discarded as shields, so it looks as though that Borkon Recruit must have taken a point of damage. I'm not exactly sure what from, but we see another copy of Tzeentch's Firestorm, so perhaps we saw a Zarathur's Flamers discarded, or we just saw a Tzeentch's Firestorm played now. There we see that Land Raider successfully routed. We see another Archon's Terror banish the Tactical Squad Cardenas, but it was outright destroyed. Okay, so I can only imagine that that single point of damage must have been dealt out by the Rotten Plague Bears, though, so it looks as though we call out good game, so very well played by both of our players, but congratulations to Zarathur for ending up taking this one home. Looks as though everything in regard to that very last combat of the game was getting very fast, very hectic, and very sloppy indeed, but ultimately it all came down to one Archon's Terror to remove that copy of Land Raider from the planet, and then once, of course, that had happened, we saw that Tzeentch's Firestorm kill off the Borkon Recruits, and a copy of Archon's Terror conveniently got rid of that Area Effect 3 copy of Tactical Squad Cardenas. Once all that was said and done, it was simply trivial matter, I suppose, to remove Commander Shadowsun from that planet, whether it was through destruction, whether it was the Commander Shadowsun player simply forfeiting, conceding, and retreating from that planet, but be that as it may, a great match. So thank you to both of our players for providing me with the opportunity to commentate this footage. Thank you to Alexander Chimadon for, of course, providing me with this video in the first place, and of course, as always, thank you at home for watching this video today. So, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you were already subscribed, as ever, you're always encouraged to share this content. As the more players there are that stumble upon Conquest, the more players may end up trying the game, like what they experience, buy into it, join our community, and of course, all together we continue to send an ever-increasingly powerful message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support for this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I'd encourage you to do so through Twitter or on Facebook, and if at any point you feel so inclined to investigate my Patreon, I'd be absolutely honored were you to donate to help support my channel. But in any case, thank you once again for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.